So, in case you haven't noticed the decorations, we have a party today, right? Hey, it's definitely the autumn season. Yesterday, a number of us went up to Apple Hill and had fun. Lots of people there at Apple Hill this time of year, and lots of crafts out there and pumpkins and all kinds of things. So, I figured that since we're going to have our party today, and next Saturday is actually the Halloween celebration, that today I would look at a little bit of the history about Halloween. Now, you know, the original name of Halloween is not Halloween. It's All Hallows Eve. So Eve, like Christmas Eve, means the night before. All Hallows means all for the holy ones. Because in the Catholic tradition, the day after is All Saints' Day. So you have All Hallows Eve, preparing for all the saints who are coming. Now, it's interesting because Halloween, and actually at this time of year, it comes from a long tradition, not just a Christian or European tradition, a tradition at this time of year for honoring the people who are in the spiritual world, honoring the dead. There's lots of different cultures that do this, especially in the autumn season. In the Korean culture, right, in Chuseok. During Chuseok, there's always some kind of memorial or ceremony to remember the ancestors. You know, gathering together and holding a service to remember the ancestors. In Europe, in European tradition, particularly the Celts, they have, I don't even know how the right way to pronounce it, but it means Samhain. But anyway, that's the day when the veil between the spiritual world and the physical world becomes really thin, and so it's easier for those dead people to come and visit our world. And particularly it's a time when all the dead people will come and visit the homes that they used to live in, visit their descendants. So it wasn't a bad thing. And actually in the Americas, we have, actually comes from the Aztec tradition, but it was made popular in Mexico, but the Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead is really, in the Catholic tradition, this type of ceremony where we remember and celebrate the people who have died and gone before us. Now, it's interesting if you think about all this, and particularly in Christian tradition and Christian history, a lot of times Christianity was trying to convert the pagan people of the time. So we have a good habit of co-opting their holidays. So what Christianity did was they had an All Saints' Day, but they decided to move it to this time of year, and so they created All Hallows Eve, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day, which was a 3-day celebration that coincided with the Celtic celebration, the Night of the Dead, in remembering the saints and all those souls that have gone to the spiritual world, remembering the dead. Now, it's some really interesting stories from this, from the Roman time. Northern France, which was called Brittany, they had a Night of the Dead, and it was like a 3-day event. The first night it was all focused on a time to pray for the people who have been liberated from purgatory. Now, in the Catholic tradition, purgatory is like the people that didn't go to hell and the people that didn't go to heaven, they're kind of stuck in the middle. And by praying for those people who are in purgatory, we can help move them more towards heaven. Actually, that's not inconsistent with a lot of unificationist thinking about the spiritual world. You know, that we're stuck kind of in the middle in the spiritual world. So they would have ceremonies, they would go out to the grave sites and pray for the dead, pray for their ancestors who had gone on to the spiritual world. And then afterwards they would go to church and have some kind of church festival, church mass. Of course, in Ireland and Scotland and England, All Hallows Eve, they added a little bit more fun to it. So it wasn't just prayer, it was also some prayer and some fun and entertainment and activity. Actually, the story that I've heard, and there's a lot of different sources to talk about it, but the original idea for trick-or-treating comes, I think, from ancient England. And what would happen was people would go and they would knock on the door, beggars would go to the door and beg for a soul cake. And in return, if they gave them a soul cake, and these were cakes that were made like a shortcake. Maybe they had currants in it or kinds of things like that. But the beggars promised that they would pray for the dead of that household. They would pray for all their ancestors. So they would go around, knock on the doors, and beg for this. Now, here's some of the, instead of saying trick or treat, here's some of the expressions they use. That, a soul cake, have mercy on all Christian souls for a soul cake. They would go knocking door to door to collect these soul cakes with the idea that they're going to pray for their ancestors, to pray for the dead in that household. Of course, as time goes on, they get a little bit more flexible. So here's another expression. Soul, an apple or two. If you haven't an apple, a pear will do. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for the man who made us all. Right? So, if you didn't have time to cook some food, fruit would work, right? But at least in these traditions, you can see that there's some acknowledgement of spirit world, there's acknowledgement of God and the divine in our souls. Now, another interesting legend, I don't know if this is really true, but it's fun to tell anyway, is one Christian woman was kind of concerned because people were kind of losing the heart of, you pass out these soul cakes and people are going to pray for your ancestors. They were just interested in the food, right? So she thought, I'm going to bake something that when people eat it, they will immediately feel the divine. They will feel God, and they will almost be forced to pray because of this beautiful, amazing food and taste. So what she did is she took some dough and rolls it up and makes a hole in the middle and then deep fries it, and creates this amazing pastry that everyone will immediately experience God by eating. You familiar with that? The donut, right. So all these traditions, though, they're related to our ancestors, the people who are dead, and in the spirit world. In modern times, we don't like to talk so much about dead people, about the dead. It's like it's the stuff of scary stories, right? The dead and ghosts and things like that. But historically, and especially in other cultures, non-Western cultures, there's a lot more effort to remember, respect, and honor and appreciate the ancestors, those people who have gone before us. So, how about Halloween today? Right? Halloween in America, right? Well, it's a lot of fun. It's fun and entertainment. It's a pretend time where we can do all kinds of fun activities and have fun. And we're going to have a party today, right? So it's all associated with fun. But it's not so focused on ancestors in prayer. It's much more commercial and just a lot less spiritual. If they talk about anything, they talk about spooky and scary stuff, right? This is now we have a whole series of horror movies, right, around Halloween and the massacres and all kinds of scary and bloody stuff. Now, I like a good scary movie. I'm a bit more of one that gets a lot of suspense, get you all, that's kind of fun, exciting. Not as much on the gory stuff, but the suspense things can be so exciting, get your adrenaline going, get you excited. But that spooky and scary stuff. Now, of course, also Halloween is associated with candy, right? There's something going on there. But also there's this association with witches and ghosts and monsters and all this kind of stuff, especially because in the modern kind of secular society, we're focusing on these external things. These are things that don't really exist, but we're going to play make-believe and have fun. Getting away from the feeling about things are spiritual, right? Now, also at Halloween, they have candy, right? There's lots of candy at Halloween. And, of course, also at Halloween nowadays, there's costumes, right? We've got a few costumes today, right? Hooray! And that makes it a lot of fun. And did I mention that Halloween is a lot about candy, right? So what I want to do is I want to spend a little time this morning and just explore a little bit more about the spiritual side of things. And particularly take this opportunity to talk about our relationship with the spiritual world. Kind of going underneath the covers of the fun that we're going to have today. Number one is we emphasize and want people to understand that the spiritual world is real. It's not just, we die and that's it and you're done. It's like you live your life, you get as many toys as you can, and whoever has the most toys wins when they die, right? No, it's not about that. In Unification tradition, we talk about our growth in like 3 stages of our lives. The first is in the womb, right? We spend 9 months in the womb in an environment of water. And then the next 90, 100 years, who knows, in the physical world. And then we graduate and go into the spiritual world, which is for eternity. In the womb, it's important that we develop up our all the muscles and organs and our lungs, things they're going to use. We don't need in the womb, but we do need in the physical world. So same thing when we come into the physical world, we need to develop our spiritual capacity. Father Moon used the expression love lungs, developing our ability to love, because when we enter into the spiritual world for eternity, what determines our experience there is not some judge that's going to punish us, but did we learn how to love? Are we people in love? Do we know God's divine love? So when we enter into that spiritual world, we know and can experience that. Eternity in heaven or hell is based on our ability to love and to care for others. So the most important activity that we do in our physical life is learning how to love. That's why we've had this series for the last number of weeks. And we keep talking about how do we cultivate and develop in ourselves our ability to love, our ability to be people of true love. So in order to grow, in spiritual growth in our physical life, it requires that we take responsibility for things, that it takes our physical body. We need to do things. We're not going to grow spiritually if we just think about stuff. We grow when we actually do things and take actions, and through a period of time. Nothing happens instantly. So the spirit world, usually when people talk about it, activities of the spirit world, there's lots of movies, right? Poltergeist, or actually a favorite one that we showed when we were in the Soviet Union, people who didn't believe in the spiritual world at all, were Ghost, or there's a good one called What Dreams May Come. There's a lot of actually interesting movies being made that give an interesting and a not inaccurate portrayal about the spiritual world. One of our TV shows that we used to enjoy a lot was The Ghost Whisperer. It was a lot of fun. Hollywood kind of made some things weird, but overall it had a nice theme about this person who could see spirits and had to deal with spirits who had something unresolved in their life. And so they would come back and they would cause problems and headaches until finally they could figure out what was missing, what was incomplete in their life, and how they could set them free. So Jewish and Christian scriptures is also filled with lots of stories about the spiritual world and as relating to those the dead, the people who are gone and in the spiritual world. Here's from Matthew, the book of Matthew. This is after Jesus' resurrection. It says, "The tombs broke open, and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people." Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of ways to interpret that. One interpretation is the source of the zombie movies, right? Here they are, the dead are coming up out of the grave, and they're crawling up out of the grave. That doesn't sound so great, right? That's not something I'm so much looking forward to, is the body coming back out of the grave. But as unificationists, we know this is talking about our spiritual selves, our spirits, coming from a lower place and going to a higher place. And when they went out and witnessed to people, it wasn't actually dragging their broken leg along, knocking on doors. No, people were having spiritual experiences with those saints, those holy people from the past. Here's how the divine principle talks about our spiritual life and our spiritual growth. This is from the chapter on returning resurrection. "According to the principle of creation, man's spirit was created to grow only through give-and-take action between the life elements from God and the vitality elements from man's physical body. Therefore, a spirit man can neither grow nor be resurrected apart from our physical body. Actually, this is very important to understand, that the growth of our spirit is intended to all happen while we're here in the physical world. Just like when we're growing up in the womb, everything we need for living our physical life is intended to happen while we're in the womb. So when we come, we're already ready to take on life in the physical world. So similarly, God designed it so that in our physical life, we would grow our spirit and be ready to enter into the spiritual world. People should be familiar with this diagram, how we grow spiritually. And we have our physical self and our spiritual self. Our physical body, in order to grow, it needs air and sunlight, things that are freely given. And also we need food and water and exercise, things that we have to make energy and effort for. Similarly, our spirit self grows by receiving the free gift of God's love, God's truth, life elements is what the divine principle calls it, that comes from God, God's love and God's inspiration. And at the same time, we need to make effort to nourish our spirit, to give our spirit vitality elements through the actions that we do. In fact, we shape the quality of our spirit through how we use this physical body. If we're doing bad things, what we're doing is we're feeding our spirit poison elements, not nourishing vitality, but poisonous elements. But when we're doing good, when we're loving others, when we're caring about others, then we're giving our spirit more vitality and love. Actually, this next Saturday, which is the actual day of Halloween, for our Divine Principle Study, we're going to focus on the spirit world and go a lot more into depth in it. So I hope you can join us on Saturday mornings as we dive into the Divine Principle and share spirit world stories with each other, right? So, again, from the Divine Principle, this is continuing from the main section. It says, so, in order that spirit men who passed away to the other world without having perfected themselves in their physical life on earth might be resurrected, they must come again to earth and fulfill the responsibility they left unaccomplished in their physical life on earth through the physical bodies of earthly men. Now, there's lots of interesting stories about the possession and spirits coming and bothering people and whatever, but the Divine Principle explains the reason that this occurs is in order for those spirits to be able to grow. They grow as we grow, by connecting to us. So this means that the spiritual world around us is very active. In fact, if we could see all the spirits in this room, we would go, whoa, man, so many beings all around here, influencing each and every one of us. Here's some of Father Moon's words about the activity in the spirit world, especially in these times. Father Moon says, now chaos from the spirit world will unfold on the earth. The chaotic spirit world will attack the earth. This is why nowadays many people are suffering from mental illness and have become half crazed. The number of people who mutter to themselves, for example, will increase gradually. From the spirit world, billions of spirits will invade the earth. Why do they do so? It's because religion has been unable to fulfill its proper role. Religion failed to stand up as God wanted it to. It was supposed to stand vertically, its eyes on heaven, in relation to people on the horizontal plane. But it has collapsed completely. This is why the spirit world is invading the earth. Don't we view an insane person as possessed by a ghost? Why do spirits enter people? It is in order to use them. God's design was that we would grow all we needed in the physical life, in our physical body. But when we don't, we go to the spirit world, we feel incomplete. We feel, I need more. And the only way we can grow is by descending and interacting with the people on earth. Now, God's hope, especially in raising up religion, was to create people who understood God, who were people of goodness, people of love, that spirits could come to and would naturally grow through. It would naturally be able to grow. This is why Father Moon, complains about the failure of religion. Because so often, as religious people, we become self-righteous, we become self-centered, we become arrogant, all kinds of problems. But with God truly present in our lives, which is the purpose of religion, to reconnect us with God, then all these spirits in the spirit world can naturally grow and be healed. So, let's look a little bit about how the divine principle talks about that relationship that we have with the spiritual world. The first fundamental principle, and we talked about this last week too, is this idea about give and take action. Everything exists through relationship. So the spirit world wants to come and they want to relate and interact with us. But in order for them to interact with us, they need a connection. They need something in common, a common base for them to interact with us. So the most common base that we have with people in the spirit world are our own ancestors, right? They already have a connection to us, right? Because we're of the same lineage. Those people in the spiritual world, our ancestors, the dead who have gone before us, have a natural, automatic connection to us. But not only that, but people who have a similar mission or calling in their life. They too will be attracted to people who have that similar mission, similar characteristics and qualities in their life. Spirit world will be attracted to that. Now there's also a principle of laws of attraction. Like attracts to like, especially in the spiritual, in terms of give and take action. When spirit world can find something in common with us on the earth, then they're attracted and they will come to us. So, if we're out there doing good things, sacrificing for the sake of others, practicing love, then that draws definitely a certain quality of energy. The New Agers would call it, bringing the good spirit, good energy. Bring that kind of quality, that kind of energy. Now, when we're doing bad things, destructive things, we're also attracting the spiritual world. But we're not attracting the best spirits. We're attracting a lot of trouble and negative spirits. So, this is a very valuable point to understand about unification teachings. We live our lives not just for ourselves. The things we do, I might think, if I just stay in bed today, it doesn't matter, no one will notice. But the truth is that there's millions of spirits that have a connection to us that are desperate to be able to grow through us. So when we overcome challenges and difficulties in our lives, then it's not just for us. Actually, we're liberating we're changing this atmosphere of the spiritual world because other spirits can grow together with us. Some spirit might come and tempt us to do something that they had a problem with. They're tempting us to do, anything wrong. Addiction is an easy one to talk about. Coming and the only way they're going to be liberated from their addiction, their problem, is if we deal with those feelings of addiction, the strong attraction or whatever, and overcome them. As we're victorious and overcome, so will those spirits in the spirit world be victorious and overcome and grow. It's an amazing thing to think that how we live our lives impacts much larger than we can see, much larger than we can imagine. Of course, when we're good, we influence our neighborhood, our environment around us, but there's this whole other dimension of the spiritual world that we have an impact on through the way we live our lives. And our whole emphasis on spiritual growth and the time we spend on how do we deal with temptations, how do we become people of true love, all this is great, strengthening our ability to liberate and heal those in the spiritual world, those ancestors that we care about. It's interesting, even in the book of Hebrews, this is how it describes our relationship with the spiritual world. It says, and all these, talking about the people in the spiritual world, though well attested by their faith, did not receive what was promised. And that's the connection with Christ. Since God had foreseen something better for us, that apart from us, that's us people in this physical world, they should not be made perfect. Those people in the spiritual world need us. And particularly the opportunities that we have to remember our ancestors, remember the dead who have gone before us. It's a valuable time. We're going to have a lot of fun. Halloween is a lot of fun, and we'll have lots of fun activities. But all the time, during our daily life, we should be aware of the rich spiritual environment that's always around us, longing to be able to grow through us. Here's, again, let me close with these words from Father Moon. Father Moon says, your physical look may be ugly, but spirit world sees you as princes and princesses. When you fight and win every battle, spiritual world will rejoice. Then you will scare away evil spirits. Your ancestors will serve you as king. We should prepare our foundation with the heart that refuses to defile heavenly tradition and dignity. You should pray as to what kind of condition you will establish. Now is a blessed time. We live in an amazing time in history, that the spirits can connect and grow through us. Now, we're going to have a lot of Halloween fun, but remember always that the spirit world, the deeper purpose and mission of our life, is to be the people who liberate our environment, liberate God, and liberate our ancestors and the people in the spiritual world who can connect to us. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, Father, Mother, God, our loving Heavenly Parent. Heavenly Parent, today we're thinking about the influence of spirit world in our lives, and even though we don't recognize the many different influences, we know that we do live in a very rich universe filled with your spiritual world, both good and evil. Heavenly Parent, we want to be those lightning rods, those catalysts, those people that you can work through to bring healing not only in this physical world, but also healing that liberates those in the spiritual world. Heavenly Parent, this time of year, there's many ancient traditions recognizing the time to honor and respect our ancestors, the dead who've gone before us. And even though Halloween now is much more just a fun event and has not so much depth, in our hearts we always want to make the deep connection of heart with you. And especially that we can be the people that can bring that healing, respect, and liberation to those in the spiritual world, especially those who are suffering. Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for your love. So, as your sons and daughters and as blessed central families, we determine to be those liberators of the spirit world. We thank you and offer this prayer. Amen and adieu. All right, everybody, please turn to your neighbor and talk about liberating the spirit world and Halloween.